All right, you might recognize that tune from the beginning of the movie. Here with Dallen again. You might remember him from our What If episode.
Hey, how's it going? Glad to be here.
Welcome, y'all. Welcome all. This is episode 20.
20.
Episode 20. I almost said 22 for some reason.
Because there's 22 movies in the MCU.
Yeah. Oh, man, you know your stuff. Yeah, so episode 20. And you guys, this is the movie to end all movies with the battle to end all battles. So I was going to do a part 1 and a part 2 for this episode, part 1 being non-spoilers, but I just didn't know how to go about talking about this movie without talking about it. So yeah. So first of all, and I've said on this podcast before, this isn't a real review. This is just fans talking about what we liked about the movie, and then maybe some things that might not have. I can't think of any complaints right now, but this isn't like a legit review. All right, we're not critics. I mean, Dallen might be.
No. There was like maybe one, maybe two things that I was like, still great, but not my favorite thing in the world. But yeah, this movie's fantastic.
So this movie starts off. First of all, I didn't even make any show notes because there's just so much to talk about, and so I'm just winging it as we talk about this behemoth of a movie. It's a lot of movie, man. It's a lot of movie. Yeah, there's a lot going on, jam-packed, full of stuff. Which is weird, too, because most of it's not even action. Like, there's actually not a lot of action until the last hour of the movie. But you still feel like you're on board the whole movie, you know? So first things first, you got Clint Barton. That's his name, right?
Yes.
You got Hawkeye with his family.
Yep.
And this is before you even see the Marvel logo.
Yeah, I was wondering if this was actually going to be like a post-credit scene or something to Infinity War. You know, it felt like it almost should have been, but like it's also a really good way to pick up.
That's a good point. I didn't even think of that.
Because you'd think you'd want to see everyone dust away in Endgame, but it really gives you almost a quick reminder of what happened before this movie.
It's like, oh, hey, haven't seen enough death lately? Here's more. Watch him watch his whole family turn to death.
I wonder if that scene was actually intended for people that hadn't seen Infinity War and had just gone in to see Endgame. You know, there's very few, but there's a couple that probably did, and it kind of gives them...
So something that I love, real quick before I dive in, something that I love is when a movie is so good that it draws other people in that might not be Marvel nerds. Mm-hmm. Like my sister, for example, Kelsey, she doesn't hate like superhero movies, but like she doesn't love them. It's not really her thing. But she was telling me, she was like, I loved this movie, you know? And she's like, and that means so much more because she's not like a Marvel nerd like we are. Oh, yeah. And so like for it to just be a good movie like that and just draw people in is really fun to me.
I think what's cool about it to me too is that somebody that doesn't necessarily like superhero movies might jump in and watch, you know, like Ant-Man and the Wasp or Captain Marvel or something first. And then because they like it so much, they'll go back and watch, you know, all 20 movies. But this movie especially requires watching all of them, I would say. Like this movie in particular, you need to have an understanding to appreciate the entirety of the movie.
Right. So
it's like the first one that does that to a degree, you know?
Uh-huh. And so the first thing you see is Clint and his daughter. And the first words uttered in this movie, in this story, is, do you know where you're going? It's more about how you get there.
Interesting.
It's more about how you get there. That's the first sentence of this movie. And
that's beautiful. I didn't notice that the first time watching it. Yeah,
I've actually seen this movie twice now. Dallen's only seen it once.
I've only seen it once. But
pathetic.
Yeah, I know. I'm working on it, kid.
Get on it. No, I'm just kidding.
I wanted to make sure everyone else had seen it once.
Yeah. So yeah, his family goes away. You hear thunder, and then you see the Marvel logo, and then you hear a song that's like kind of surprisingly happy. And the lyrics in this song are like something like, "Hey, Mr. Fantasy, play us a tune and make us all happy." So it's, you know, the Russo brothers are saying like, "Don't worry, guys, it's gonna get better."
That was actually a James Gunn picked song.
Right, I was going to ask you about that. So
Yes,
he picked that song for...
I think that was supposed to be in Infinity War, or maybe I just heard it, after Infinity War. But it might have been on the cutting board, and then they made it into Endgame.
And as you know, James Gunn, director of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, fine taste in music. Was it the whole, like, Quill having that music and listening to, like, tunes from the 70s and 80s, was that a James Gunn thing, or was that a thing from... I'm not an actual comic person. I just like the movies.
I'm not either. I follow the Wikipedias and stuff, but I think James Gunn actually took inspiration from the comics less than he actually adapted them. He's been the one to do that more so than anyone.
Right. So, and as you know, well, I think I've talked about this. James Gunn is, in fact, going to direct Guardians 3.
As Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right. Yeah, so yeah, then we go on and we see Tony, and man, they did a great job of making him look like he was about to freaking die.
Oh yeah. So that whole scene with Nebula and Tony, I watched it and was just casual about it, but I heard a reviewer afterward talk about how Tony's always wanted a kid, after Infinity War, talking to Pepper, but Nebula's always wanted a father, and so them together was this almost foreshadowing of her finally finding like a father figure and him finally having a daughter.
Right.
Which was really deep to me. I didn't catch that when I watched the movie.
Yeah, Nebula, man, such a sad character with such a great arc. Because, like, she just, not only did she want a dad, she wanted to be accepted by anybody. And she is one of the things that made Guardians 2 so good. Because you have that relationship, this beautiful allegory of sisters who are competing, a sibling competition, but they're like, competing like to the death almost, and they try to kill each other, but then they learn to like each other. It's this beautiful sister and sister story arc, and Guardians 2 is one of the best movies in the MCU.
And I think
so much better than Guardians 1, in my opinion.
And I would say, going along with that, Endgame really puts a stark contrast between where the characters were when we met them and where they are now. Like, they've only been in 2, maybe 3 movies, but there's just such a huge character growth for both Gamora and Nebula and the rest of the Guardians, And Thanos even. We see that more in Endgame than any other movie. You see where they've been and where they are.
Right. And I remember after Infinity War thinking, okay, so who is left on Titan? It's literally just Stark and Nebula. That's a weird dynamic. Mm-hmm. Two unlikely people that are, you get to see them listening to Quill's playlist and playing
paper
football with some kind of metal thing. But yeah, so then Captain Marvel shows up and saves them, and then, man, like, Robert Downey Jr.'s acting in this movie, like, he's a movie star. Like, there's actors and there's movie stars. When he's on screen, you're not bored.
No. Especially in that scene, right as he comes back and meets with the Avengers, with Captain America.
Yeah.
His frustration, his anger, it's so human to watch. It's so frustrating, but it's so human.
Yeah, and at first you think, oh, like, they hugged, he tells him, I lost the kid. He says, we all lost. And, like, they're kind of okay with each other. And you're like, oh, okay. And then, they're all talking about what happened, and Tony reality kind of hits him. And he's like, remember when I said I wanted a suit of armor on the world? And first of all, his acting in that scene, when he's just bitter and upset and not all there, that was like, so, like, that was grade A acting to me.
Oh yeah, I think that's probably one of the most emotionally filled scenes in the movie, to be honest.
Yeah. And and so then, so they team up, and Captain Marvel, she's gung-ho, she's cocky. Yep. Kind of annoys some of the veterans in the crowd, not in the crowd, in the group. like Rhodey's like, hey, look, new girl. And she's just, but Steve, Captain America, he kind of is on board. He's like, no, yeah, let's go get the stones. Let's do it. I like this girl. And they go and they find out that he destroyed the stones, and then Thor chops his head off.
I love that this is all in like the first 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think anybody saw this coming, where their vengeance mission, they have the idea, they have the plan, they have the solution, then they go and then they do the solution in the first 15 minutes. With one problem is that the gauntlet's now useless because the stones are gone. And that's where you set up the entire movie.
I thought they were just going to, like... I knew that they were probably going to show up pretty soon and go after him pretty soon. Mm-hmm. But I thought... I thought they were just going to get their asses beat.
Oh, yeah.
And then, like, okay, now what are we going to do?
And that's how every other movie's always been. This is one of the first movies to twist that a little bit.
Right. And then you hear, or you see the word 5... And I'm thinking, chapter 5? Like, wait, what's going on? And then it says years later. And I'm like, oh, okay, that explains the different haircuts that we've seen in the trailer.
It's also interesting, too, because up until this point in the MCU, every movie has happened the year that it's come out, you know? And now that we're skipping 5 years, what is this, like 2024 now? 2023 somewhere?
2023.
So, yeah, that's really interesting that now going forward in the MCU, movies are going to be farther ahead than we are. You know, it's weird. But yeah, that time jump, it really sets...
Or maybe it is 2024. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I've heard 2023, but the math doesn't add up. I don't know. But like, yeah, just that time jump where you start seeing where everybody's been at for 5 years. It, like, you could fit an entire movie in that 5-year gap, just with everybody's differences and where they've been and what they've done.
And who knows, there might be a movie.
Oh, that's true. Maybe a TV show.
Yeah.
Disney Plus.
But yeah, in the trailer you see lots of different hairdos, and you're like, wait, so does Scarlett Johansson have short blonde hair or like long red hair? You know, and then Tony Stark has like this weird sort of blonde highlight thing going on. Lots of hair going on.
Lots of hair. Hawkeye's mohawk thing.
But you don't see Captain Marvel's haircut until the movie.
True.
Which,
yeah, that was interesting.
You know, a lot of guys don't like short hair on girls. I think sometimes it works, and I think it works.
I think so.
Oh yeah, of course. You know, Brie Larson can pull off any haircut. She's just drop dead gorgeous.
Even like the helmet with the mohawk thing from her movie. Even that was cool.
Yeah. Oh man. So something I kind of wanted to talk about in regards to this movie, and really any movie, is I want to talk a little bit about the term fan service and the misconceptions surrounding that word. And people always use it as if it's a bad word. I don't think it is. I think that, you know, that's what sequels are. And I'm kind of plagiarizing what Kevin Smith has said on his podcast recently. But I mean, I think just like anything else, there's good fan service and there's bad fan service. You know, with The Empire Strikes Back, that's fan service. You know,
and I think what comes with like the differences between just fan service and being like good fan service would be, you know, having a story, making things compelling, having characters actually still be continuous, and then you can have those fan servicey moments. But if it's what the character would do, it doesn't feel like that. It just feels like a progression. If you structure the story in a way,
exactly,
that fan service just makes sense.
Yeah, and you know, like Captain America looking down at his twin from 2012 and saying that is America's ass. That's fan service, but it's good fan service. Oh, yeah. This is fan service done very well by very good writers. And you know, like anything else, there can be really bad fan service too. But you know, like
going along with the fan service thing, there was one scene or one sequence that kind of came off a little bit forced to me.
Okay.
And that was, and this is going to sound terrible. I'm going to sound terrible for saying this, but there's a scene in the final act when all the like heroes get kind of tied up doing stuff, and they still have to get the gauntlet away from Thanos, and it's just women. Like all the women team up together. And I'm not, it just seems a little bit convenient, maybe? Like, I understand why it's there,
And for sure.
It's an awesome scene, but I feel like they could have done a little bit of more like setup for that moment. Show all the different men kind of being tied up, so that it kind of makes more sense. Maybe.
Yeah, it's like Marvel has been good to. Look, Marvel has been good to diversity and good to women, and we know that they're badass female characters, when Captain Marvel came out, some of the more feminist people out there they felt a little like, okay, like you don't need to make it that obvious. You can just have a female character who's awesome and doesn't need to be about how they're female. Like Rey in Star Wars. They don't, it's not about how she's a woman. She just is. And that is a little bit more convenient because she's in a universe that is very diverse. Star Wars is about a universe where there's diverse, all kinds of crazy characters everywhere. And so it's not taking place in this world, but still, like, it's not about how she's a badass female. She just is. It's not about how Finn is black. He just is. So yeah, I agree. That might have been a little obvious, but still cool.
Still amazing. It was an awesome sequence. I loved it.
Yeah.
It did just kind of pull me out just a little bit.
Sure.
Where I was a little bit on the nose, but like, still 9.5 out of 10, for sure.
Right. And so Ant-Man, of all people, he a rat lands on the button and he comes out of the quantum realm. What he thought was 5 hours was 5 years. And then he shows up, asks them if they know anything about quantum physics. They don't. He eats Natasha's sandwich. Anyways, so they go pitch the idea of a time machine to Stark. He laughs at him. We don't have to break down the whole entire movie linearly, but so basically they straight up build a time machine.
And I feel like what's interesting too is that Tony had already been working on a time machine by the sounds of things. By the way that scene plays out, he'd already been considering it and working on it.
Yeah.
And it seems like a little convenient that he just barely came up with the solution for it the day that Ant-Man shows up. But it was really great timing on everyone's part. But
right,
I'm kind of surprised they didn't bring Bruce Banner in, Professor Hulk in to kind of help with the physics of it. He's a little bit in the later stages, but not in that initial planning stage with Tony, which was
right. And granted they're squeezing a lot into these 3 hours. Obviously. So yeah, and Tony Stark is, the thing is, as sad as he is about what happened and as not happy he is that it turned out that way, it's been a good 5 years for him. He's settled down in this beautiful lakeside house with Pepper, and they have a daughter who's adorable. And man, I don't know. I just want to see a movie where it's just like him and his family and like nothing goes wrong, and it just shows him like, being a good dad.
maybe that'll be one of the episodes of the What If series on Disney Plus.
So, right. So that he has this sort of cognitive dissonance because he's like, I know how to help fix this, but at the same time, I'm so happy and like I don't want this to affect me and my family at all. And so, and I'm expecting Pepper to be like, do not like try to, go do this. Like, please don't. Like she always does. She's just like, look, I know you won't be able to rest until you do something about this, and I'm not good at trying to stop you.
Yeah.
And it's this really powerful scene with them where she basically tells him, like, you need to do this.
There's a really great line that kind of sums up Tony's whole motivations there. It's later in the movie, but he tells Hulk, wish for everyone to come back, or, ask for everyone to come back, but don't lose what we have. Keep everything the way it is right now, but just bring those people back. And that's Tony's whole mission, is to walk that line, to walk that balance, to keep what's there, but bring back those that are lost. and that's a really hard thing to do. And it's fitting that he's the one that makes the sacrifice to fulfill that balance.
Right. They beautifully set that up for the climax of the whole movie. And there's just, so the first hour of this movie is just a beating pretty much. And it's super sad. But then the second third of this movie, and then really the third of the movie is just so fun. And like, you know, like you just see, you see Ant-Man like eating a taco outside the facility, and then Nebula and Rocket show up, and then she's just like, watch out, there's an idiot in the landing strip, and then Rhodey comes and like, and his taco falls, but then you know, Hulk comes and like gives him another taco, and it's like playing this happy song, and I'm just like, yes. And it's almost like that scene in Age of Ultron, one of my favorite Marvel scenes, where they're just at the after party and it's just all the Avengers just hanging out.
Oh, I love that.
And like, we just don't get a lot of that, and when we do, it's worth so much. Like, it's so cool, and we get to see them having a little bit of fun and joking around together. It's like, I just want to watch a sitcom where they're just all happy and they're just at a bar like It's How I Met Your Mother.
Yes.
And they're just all like joking and teasing each other. Oh, that's all
I
I
could do
want.
that for an hour.
That's all I want.
Honestly, that would be sweet.
So yeah, so then they divvy up into teams. We haven't talked about Fat Thor yet. One of the ballsiest decisions in this movie. Thor is in a, and at first I thought, wow, that's kind of ballsy, but it's really funny. But the more I think about it, the more I think it's such a cool, powerful, unique arc for him. Because he's been cool. He's been this badass, in shape guy for hundreds of years. Now you're seeing him like, oh, I'm not who I used to be. Oh, I'm a little bigger than I used to be. I'm not as cool as I used to be. I'm sad about what happened. And I'm like, wow, they made Thor more relatable than he has ever been.
Oh, yeah.
And that is so cool to me.
And as I was watching it, I was trying to wonder, like why he was the way that he was, and it always came back to Loki. Loki's the one that he lost. Loki was his brother, and even though they were always at odds with each other, it's Loki's death in Infinity War that drives Thor to be who he is in Endgame, I believe.
And then how cool will the next Thor or Guardians movie, where you see him and he's getting in shape and he's slowly coming back to who he was. How cool will that be?
I hope.
And they owned it too. They stuck to it. They didn't have, I would have been pissed off if like some bolt of lightning came down and then all of a sudden he was thin. That would have pissed me. That would have pissed me off.
I was halfway expecting that, but I'm glad they didn't,
Right.
But one thing I think would be funny is if in Guardians 3, it's just Thor using a Bowflex with Star-Lord, just, getting in shape.
Because he mentioned that, right.
Yeah. I think that'd just be hilarious.
Yeah, like they're both trying to lose weight. Oh, man, because, Quill's one sandwich away from fat.
Yep.
As Rocket put it.
Bowflex, yeah.
And so I think it's hilarious that one of the most important movies for this movie is the one Marvel movie I haven't seen, which is Thor: The Dark World. Not that it's like that pivotal to this movie, but it sets up Thor getting to go talk to his mom, which even for me, somebody who hasn't seen Thor: The Dark World, the only Marvel movie I haven't seen, even pre-MCU, I've seen all of them. Yeah. Anyways, him talking to his mom was one of the most emotional parts of the movie for me. And it was so cool because she's like, are you an idiot? No. Are you a failure? Yes.
And I think what's cool too is Freya,
and everybody's
Freya, his mom, has like maybe 4 lines in both Thor 1 and Thor 2, but in this movie she gets way more lines, way more screen time, and a way more emotional arc than she's had through the entire MCU, and she dies in that movie in Thor: The Dark World.
Yeah.
So no one really expected her to come back and to have more screen time, more emotional screen time, and she totally earned it. It's
so funny to me that the Russo brothers, or Kevin Feige and Marvel, they're just like, oh, that one movie that's like the one Marvel movie that's not good, we're gonna make you go back and watch even that one. Like, screw you.
Well, and I think part of that's also, forced by the plot. It's the only movie that really deals with the Reality Stone. It's. I mean, you could argue that it's in the collector's possession and in nowhere, but it's way more exciting to see Thor have a use and have a purpose. So,
and it's so cool because, even if you haven't gained as much weight as Thor or whatever, we've all been there, because this whole movie is about failure and what you do with failure, and for for him to have that heart to heart with his mom, and she's like, look, you're not a loser. Are you a failure? Yeah, but everybody is. And that was so cool to me. Like, that scene was awesome.
No, it was.
And then he gets Mjolnir back, his hammer. And by the way, you don't see Rocket get this stuff from Natalie Portman. I want to see that. Like, what do they do? Stab her in the butt? Like, I want to see that scene.
I wonder. So Natalie Portman is still credited in this movie, but I wonder if the scene that they use of her, like, sleeping or whatever is just unused footage.
Probably. Probably.
Because she's always said she doesn't want to come back to the MCU.
Sure.
So I wonder if it just wasn't feasible with her and her agreements. But
I mean, it worked.
It worked,
Isn't that crazy? Somebody as huge as Natalie Portman just being an afterthought in this. Like this movie is stacked. Anyway, so basically they all get the stones, and except they come back, and Natasha's not there. Oh my gosh, that scene was so great.
Yeah. Yep.
Because you're on Clint's side. You want it to be him. And then you're just like, oh, and the way the music is just like the music was in the Infinity War, and they're fighting, but like, because they both want to sacrifice, they both want it to be them and not the other. And these two characters care about each other so much, and like, her acting, like her facial expression and the way she's like, it's okay, let me go. I'm about to cry. But like, man.
Yeah.
That's messed up.
And as like watching this scene for the first time, you have no idea how it's going to play out. You kind of realize that that one of them's going to make it out. And the whole time you're watching this, they're both talking back and forth, and you're like, wait, who's it going to be, And I thought maybe Hawkeye, because he'd had such a rough arc in the beginning of the movie. But then you have to consider that he has a family to go back to. He has
right.
And what does Natasha have?
It was totally worth it, yeah.
And Natasha has a movie after this. She has a prequel movie probably coming up. And so you kind of have to wonder, like, who do I want to see in the MCU going forward? And it's this really emotional scene of you're going back and forth with these characters in your own head about who you want. And the action plays out so perfectly that they're both just one-upping each other to take their own life. And it's so tragic and beautiful at the same time.
Yep.
That it's just...
And it's so clever how they made it mirror the same things that were happening and when Gamora... Like, it's the same shot, only instead of the green puddle around her head, it's a red puddle. Gosh, brutal. And so they're all... I love the way Banner is like, she can't come back. It needs to be worth it. We need to make it worth it. Yeah. And damn, they do. Yeah. So, all right, so let's talk about the third act of this freaking movie.
One sec, though.
Yeah, okay.
Act 2 of this movie is my favorite part of the whole movie. Like, I love the action scenes, but the Avengers movie tie-in with Captain America and the elevator and the Hail Hydra thing, my favorite part. Go to Act 2 then.
We're good, though. No, you're good.
So yeah, that whole Avengers sequence where they're collecting the stones, that's my favorite part. It's just fun, it's upbeat, but there's not a lot of action. So
right. Yeah, so then that's what I like, really. I like, hearing, like, letting them all talk. Like I said, I wish I could just watch a sitcom where nothing bad's happening and all these characters are just being witty with each other. Like, I would watch hours of that. But yeah, so they do their thing. They succeed, but two things. One, they don't have Natasha. She's gone. Like, gone. And then you have 2014 evil Nebula and not current nebula. So they reverse the snap with Hulk, which conveniently he's able to take it on because it's gamma and he's like made out of gamma. Mm-hmm. And but it F's his arm up. Mm-hmm. Anyways, he reverses the snap, and it works because Barton gets a call from his wife, and then Thanos' ship just comes and wrecks the Avengers facility. Mm-hmm. And then Cap, Iron Man, and Thor are able to get their composure, and they go to greet Thanos, who's just cockily just sitting there with his big anime-looking blade. That thing's awesome.
Can we talk about how awesome Thanos is, though? That past Thanos can step in and fulfill the role that his future self sort of failed at. Past Thanos just kind of steps in, figures out what he did in the future, and then just steps up to take that part.
He definitely knows what he wants.
Yeah, and at this point, he wants to just destroy everything. He's not.
Yeah, and he's like, you know what? I'm not going to half and half the universe. I'm going to take it down to the last atom, and I'm just going to wreck your effing little planet. And he's like, F you.
Not to mention, this time around, he doesn't just have the, those demo dog things, whatever, that he had in Infinity War. He still has all the Chitauri that the Avengers wiped out.
Yeah.
The Avengers. He has a bigger army this time around.
Yeah.
And he's more brutal.
Right. And so, man... So yeah, then they kind of fight him, and they kind of get beat, and like Thor accidentally hits Iron Man with his hammer at one point and like knocks him out, and then you got Thanos is like putting his battle axe like into his sternum, and you're like shit, and then you see Mjolnir. Right? This is my favorite freaking part of the whole movie. Yeah. Mjolnir goes flying through the air, kind of like that scene in The Force Awakens with the lightsaber.
Okay, yeah.
And then Captain America catches Thor's hammer, and the crowd goes wild.
It was by far the most insane thing.
And not only is he wielding his hammer, he knows moves with it, and like he summons lightning, and I'm just beside myself.
No, I didn't see the lightning coming. I thought, okay, he can hold
right,
hammer, but I didn't think
that's straight out of the comics. By the way, I looked it up. There's
insane.
And when he knocks Thanos' ass into the air with that hammer, I like yelled like, I'm sorry, I'm one of those annoying people, I know. But like when a big movie comes out, I like it when the crowd gets into it. It's fun.
No, that was insane.
Oh man, and I will. Okay, so that happens, and then but they still kind of get beat, and then the last one standing is Cap and Thanos and all of Thanos' armies and all of his men, and then you hear Sam on the radio, right? You hear Sam on the radio
on your left.
And
so perfect. So perfect.
and then you see like all of the Doctor Strange portals start to show up, and oh my gosh! And I'm gonna play the music, and we're gonna give a little shout out to Alan Silvestri. Is that his name?
That's his name. Yep.
And this song is called Portals off of the Endgame soundtrack, and but yeah, this. Hold on, bear with me here. Dang it. Anyways, so I didn't really notice how good the music was until the second time I saw the movie, because you notice more the second time. But you're seeing Black Panther and like everybody together, and you're seeing Spider-Man, and you're seeing Falcon. Everybody comes back, and the crowd's just cheering with every character that shows up.
And I think one of the most beautiful things that the screenwriters did with this was that they bring them all back, but then they hit you with all this crazy action, and then you almost forget that they've undone the snap. Like, I almost forgot. And then
exactly.
It was that on your left that I was like, wait, they are back. I totally forgot,
And you just hear Ibombe, Ibombe, Ibombe. You see M'Baku, you see Quill, you see the Guardians of the freaking Galaxy.
Spider-Man.
You see Doctor Strange.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, yeah. You just like... And then yeah, it's just so beautiful. Like it's my favorite cinematic moment in history, and probably always will be.
I think it's a bigger battle than anything in Lord of the Rings.
And I thought that they were just going to rehash the movie, the music from Infinity War, but no, this movie has its own music. And so, and then you just see the best, and then you see Thanos, and he's just like F. And then you just see the most epic 20-minute battle that you've ever seen. And you've got Valkyrie on a freaking like Pegasus horse, like just slicing those big like alien floaty monsters. And
it's such an insane.
Ant-Man's huge.
Oh yeah.
You see the Wasp.
Drax at one point is doing the double stab thing into one of them, and it's just so perfect. And
it's just I'll never forget that. And like I don't care who even if I didn't like particularly care about Marvel, I would still have gotten pumped for that. Like because it's just and also remember how important Black Panther is like to so many people, and how amazing that movie was, because you didn't get a whole lot of Black Panther in Infinity War. You didn't get a whole lot of him in this either, but when he shows up, that's such a big moment, and like he means so much to like a lot of black characters, or a lot of black fans who haven't had a lot of black superheroes. And when there is a black superhero, there's somebody like War Machine or Falcon, which like they're cool. Don't get me wrong, but like
they're still
to get their own movie and have it be like this big, epic, really good movie is a huge deal. Like
we've got Miles Morales, we've got T'Challa.
Yeah, there's lots to look forward to.
I can't wait to see a live action.
And you see Pepper. You see Pepper and Tony fighting alongside each other. You see, Cap and Thor both wielding hammers, and Thor's like, no, give me the bigger one. Like
favorite part.
It's like that's just such a real moment. Like, no, I want that one. Like
they're fighting over the Thor's weapons,
and it's just, man, it's so great. Like I'm worried that I'm just not gonna ever feel that way in a movie ever again. No. I mean, I might, but I might not.
I think if we ever do see a movie this big, it's going to have to be Marvel again, but it's going to have to be in
maybe
10-year anniversary.
Or if they ever do a Marvel versus DC or something.
That could be insane. But just imagine next time we see this, there could be Young Avengers, there could be X-Men, there could be Fantastic Four. We could do this all again in 5 years with MCU.
Yeah, and so you just get this great moment where you see Peter and Tony Stark hug, and the Peter doesn't have the same emotional weight that Tony does, obviously, because it hasn't been 5 years. First of all,
not this time, but
it didn't feel like 5 years for him. Yeah. Whereas Tony, it did, and and then Captain Marvel finally shows up. And it's kind of convenient that she wasn't around for all of this, because she's so powerful. She's like Superman.
Yeah.
And I felt dumb, though, because when the golden light showed up in the sky and Thanos' army started to fire, they're like, who are they shooting at? And then the crowd cheered, and I was like, who is the... And you were like, Captain Marvel. And I was like, oh.
Who else would
yeah, I know. And it reminds me of somebody who is familiar with the Tolkien books said that Gandalf is so powerful, he would kind of conveniently show up at the last minute like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a Gandalf moment almost, which is weird.
Yeah.
And then, like, when he like punches her head and it does nothing and she just stares at him, oh my gosh.
That was pretty sweet.
Like, I'm literally in love with her.
The thing where, so Thanos and Captain Marvel are fighting, right? And she's like about to like, win. And so he takes the Power Stone off the gauntlet, puts it in his hand, and then punches her really hard with it.
Right, yeah.
It was super clever, but it was just smart on Thanos' part.
Yeah, you were like, oh, that was smart.
That was cool. That was cool.
So, and then my first thought was, I thought, oh, you know what? Because there's at one point, so throughout this battle, they're carrying the gauntlet, they're passing it around. At one point, Peter has it. At one point, T'Challa has it. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, oh, with his suit, maybe he could do a snap. Because, like...
With who?
Black Panther, because his suit absorbs so much. Whereas if he did that, his suit would absorb like so much. He
Yeah.
would like be glowing purple.
I wonder how powerful vibranium really is, though, because you see Captain America's shield just get hacked apart in this movie.
Well, according to the movie Black Panther, this is one of my few complaints about the movie Black Panther is that they basically made what's it called? Vibranium. They made vibranium basically magic. Like I don't know. They're a little bit too invincible. Anyways, though, gotta wrap this up in a minute. But yeah, so Tony ends up somehow, I don't know how, he like absorbs all the stones, kind of like Robin, like on Robin Hood, the cartoon, when he,
Kisses all the fingers.
he like does all that with the stones, sort of, and like ends up with them, because
It's the nanotech.
Thanos tries to do a snap and nothing happens, and it's like, haha, you dumbass. and then it shows Iron Man. And this boss, right? He morphs his hand morphs into a glove type thing, and Thanos says, "I am destiny. I am inevitable."
Yeah.
And Tony just goes, "I am Iron Man," and he snaps, and all the bad guys turn to dust.
Oh, it's super sad.
And it basically fries him.
Yeah.
And he's kind of a goner, and he's like on his last couple of breaths, and you see yeah. I'm like trying not to cry. You see Rhodey and Peter and Pepper. They all do their goodbyes, and I'm like, those motherfuckers, they made us they made Tony watch Peter die, and then they made Peter watch Tony die. That's sadistic.
And I think it's sad and ironic at the same time that Tony, who was the happiest at the beginning, is the one with the saddest conclusion. And everyone else is the opposite. They're sad in the beginning and happy in the ending. It's just, he was the sheep to slaughter for this movie.
Yeah, and it was so powerful when Strange and Tony look at each other, and he holds up his one finger, like this is it, and he looks at him, and they both know. Mm-hmm. And the look on Tony's face is like, I know what I need to do. Yeah. And, he lays down his life for everybody, and then Thanos' army and him just flutters away into dust, and then you get a really epic, sad, happy but sad ending at Tony's funeral with everybody, and you see Hoppy, and he's saying that he'll always be there for his daughter, and buy her cheeseburgers just like her dad, and you even see the kid from Iron Man 3 who I didn't recognize. And then you see they tried it. So I'm trying to hurry up, Carrie, because I only have 2 minutes left. They send Cap back. He puts all the stones back, which I don't know what he does on Vormir, but we'll talk about that later. And but he decides to stay in the 40s. He lives his life with Peggy. He grows old, and that's it.
That's it.
Any last words on this amazing movie?
No, it's amazing. It's everything you want out of a movie and more. It doesn't just make an amazing movie, but it makes every other MCU movie better by association. It's incredible.
Right. And it's going to be hard to top this movie, but man, we loved it, and it was a lot of fun. Until next time, this is The Jet.